Hey there, Crystal Thompson here for Simon Says Stamp. Today I have part 2 video using the awesome December 2020 card kit. We're making 2 cards using some silver embossing powder and the basic supplies included in the kit. To get started, we're going to do some heat embossing with silver embossing powder like I mentioned earlier. We're going to do some quick Copic coloring. For this, we're going to use the awesome Holly Berry stamp set. This is from the Joyful Season. And we're going to do this on a white Neenah cardstock included in the kit. This is the Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I've cut it to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And using the Have a Holly Jolly Holidays, we are going to stamp that right on the center using the Simon Says Stamp watermark embossing ink. I'm letting it sit for a couple seconds, and I'm going to bring in my silver embossing powder, and this is also from the Simon store, Simon brand, and this is the fine detail silver powder, and you can see how pretty it is. And this is even before we heat set it. Once I've heat set it, I'm going to bring in that Holly Berry stamp included in the Joyful Season 6x8 stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it several times. So we're going to be doing our DIY pattern repetitive backgrounds, which is my favorite technique, I think, to make cards with very minimal supplies. And so I like to do 3 or 4 on one side or one corner of the card, bring in my gray silver embossing powder, and then continue on to the next corner. All this is doing is it allows me to stamp and cover the image with the embossing powder, and then I can move on but not having to do the heat setting all at once. When you are using metallic embossing powders or glitter, if you overheat it or overset it, it will lose that shimmer, it'll cook it. So that is why I like to do it all at once when I'm going to heat set. Then I'm going to bring in several colors of Copics. I'm going to begin with W3, which is a warm gray, and I'm going to color the entire part of the card. So this is going to be our background. If you wanted to limit the amount of coloring that you're doing, you could totally do this on a piece of gray cardstock, a very, very light gray. But since we're only using the contents of the kit, this is the way to do it with the W3 color. So we're going to color the entire image, and then we're going to bring in our second color that's going to cover the interior parts of the holly, which is going to be the leaves and the little berries. Once I've covered the entire image, I'm going to bring in R27, which is just a very basic red, and I'm going to cover the little berries. And as it dries, it's going to look a little cleaner, so no worries. Then using YG45 for the leaves of the holly plants here that we have going on. And as you can see, the Copic alcohol markers kind of sits on top of the heat embossing, which is just fine. It just makes it look a little different, but be sure that you stay within the lines on this one. Okay, so once we are done, I'm not going to do much blending with this whatsoever. I'm going to bring in W5 to just add some shadowing, and then we're going to move on to the next part of our card, which is embellishing. Again, super easy. I'm going to add a couple drops of adhesive, and then using some silver crystals or sequins, we're going to add them, and this is just going to give this card a very nice dimension and glittery. And if you didn't want to use crystals, you can use pom-poms, you can use anything you got in your craft stash, as long as it's silver, red, or green. So again, being able to use these traditional Christmas colors for one layer cards without having to do a ton of coloring, right? Very, very basic. So for our second card, we're going to be doing some abstract masking and then doing some heat embossing with silver embossing powder, which is the whole point of our video. So for this card, we're going to use the Joyful Season 6x8 stamp set. We're going to do some masking, and I'm going to show you how to do masking without masking tape. So I have run out of masking tape, so I'm going to be using some basic printer paper and the awesome included sheet of the kit, the Midnight Green cardstock. So it's a really pretty, not quite hunter green, it's a midnight green. It's really pretty. And then using printer paper, I have used my paper trimmer and just cut it so it's all, strips. And so using some washi tape, it's going to be held together. Then using the floral from the Joyful Season, I'm going to try to line it up with my Misty, and because I don't have a large stamping block, that's why I'm using my Misty, but you can totally use whatever you got if you have a stamping platform or a stamping block. Then we're going to cover that image that we have stamped using the Simon Says Stamp watermark embossing ink. We're going to cover it with silver embossing powder, and then I've heat set it. So I've done 2, and then I'm going to do that last one. As you can see, I'm just using parts of the stamp set. You don't have to use the same thing. That way you get different looks to the masking, and then you can mask as much or as little as you want. So you can leave a huge 1-inch masking, or you can just do a tiny little bit of just the edge. So this is another way to do some masking without having to use a masking tape. And at this point I could have removed the edges, the sides of the paper, but I didn't, and then I end up having to just bring in that embossing powder through the bottom. And one of the biggest suggestions that you place a piece of cardstock or printer paper under your heat embossing container so you can put it all back. Once it's heat set, I'm going to begin to remove my masking. And I really like the shape it came out. It's kind of fun. I wish I would have done it a little more funky, but I like it so far. So we're going to set this aside, and we're going to bring in other pieces of the Joyful Season stamp set. So with another piece of cardstock of the Midnight Green, I'm going to stamp the Season's Greetings using my Simon Says Stamp watermark embossing ink right on that corner. We're going to stamp it down. We're going to add some more of that silver embossing powder. So if you got a big embossing powder container, good for you. We're going to use it up today. Then we're just going to cover that, heat set that. We're going to trim it into a little rectangle, and that's going to be our sentiment for the card. And then I wanted to add a 3D component to this. So using the mistletoe from the Joyful Season stamp set, I'm going to stamp that down using the same watermark embossing ink. And I like to let it sit for just a couple seconds to really let it sit on top of that cardstock. And then using silver embossing powder, we're going to cover that and heat set. I have trimmed it and not gotten a paper cut using my scissors. And I've added pieces of foam to the back. And then I have, for a little bit of embellishment, the Tim Holtz Ideology Christmas velvet trims included in the kit. And I have already trimmed these guys out, creating 2 little ribbons, adding some foam adhesive to the back. So we're going to place that Season Greetings down first, and then that mistletoe right on top, just to give it some dimension. And it kind of, because of the funky sizing and the fun size of the masking, it really brings the whole focus point to the Season Greetings and the mistletoe. And then last but not least, using the same supplies that we used for the last card, we're going to be using the silver gem, silver crystals available on the Simon store. And we're going to place them all over the card. And that's going to be our card. So 2 very easy peasy fast ways to do some cards using the December 2020 card kit. Guys, if this is the first video you've seen of this set, go back over to my YouTube channel. I have another video with this, and I'm going to try to do 3 videos with this kit of sets of cards using the same kit with minimal supplies. I'm going to place the links below. Products are linked below. Thank you so much for sticking around with me today. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe to support my efforts. And if you liked the video, please comment and share. We'll see you guys later. Have an amazing day.